Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. It is absolutely raining today. It's wild. Oh my God. And school drop off this morning was not the best. I got so emotional because it's so rainy that I don't know, like with you guys listening, wherever you guys are, that when it rains here in Western Australia, that everyone just goes crazy pants. So slow. Obviously, the roads are wet, all those sort of things, and it kind of impacts dropping the girls off to school. And I just got so emotional because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never late for Scarlett. And she was just late for school, poor girl. The teacher was all okay with it. It was just really hard to get the girls to school because they have school at opposite ends of like where they need to go. And yeah, in the mix with rain and traffic, it just was emotional for me. I think it just comes under that, like, you feel like you're failing. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I should have got you there. I should have moved my ass in the morning. And obviously, we are responsible for getting our children ready and things like that. So it's that whole thing where it felt like I didn't do enough, you know? So, oh my God. Anyway, I'm sure people who are mums, you totally relate with what I mean. Okay, so today I am going to talk about when to shut the F up, basically. So when to just be quiet and let others speak. And there is a thing of art of listening. And listening definitely coincides into communication because sometimes all we want to do in moments and situations that we really want to get our point across, or we want to defend ourselves all the time. You know, when sometimes it's just about letting the other person speak on how they're feeling, on what's happened, and like being able to just sit in that. And sometimes it can be really uncomfortable. So I'm going to talk obviously from my experience because I had to learn the art of listening. And I always thought I was a good listener in that. It's just so much more than just allowing other people to speak. It's really knowing you don't always have to talk things out. I believe it's a really good episode to do because I talk so much about we've got to use our voice and, you know, really be more assertive, and how we can say things in different ways and things like that to even resolve an issue in something, that not everything needs to be talked out all the time. Okay. And I have very much learnt this. I've really been helping someone with this. And I think this would be such a good episode because although it's really important to understand our personal power and to understand our voice and to voice our opinion and what comes up for us, and you know, try to say it in different ways, there's definitely a big art in just not saying something at all. You can make a big impact by not saying anything at all, and I think that's also just as important. So what I mean by when we need to just shush. Sometimes when, say, we have a disagreement or there's an argument happening, this is obviously always generalized, but I can talk from my point of view because this is my default. And I know that a lot of us would probably have this default because with my listeners, I do know that we're all in like a similar age bracket. Okay. I know that where we can all sort of relate in this. And this is just a very generalized, okay, because everything is situational and circumstantial and we've all lived a different life, right? So, what I mean by that is we're having a disagreement or something comes up or someone's bringing something to your attention, right? Sometimes when we're hearing someone speak, obviously they're wanting us to take accountability for something. How we came across to them in a certain conversation isn't how we intended. But again, everyone will perceive how you speak. We can definitely learn from each other, right? And I think we need to really normalize that. We don't allow ourselves to learn from each other because there's that ego point of view. It's like, oh, well, I'm older than her, I should know more. When really they've had a different experience and we can all learn from different points of view. It's just about taking that sort of ego out of it and that entitlement. When you actually sit and listen to someone, you can actually learn a lot if you really hear the words that they're trying to say, however we're coming across and what we're trying to talk about, however it is, whatever circumstance, that the people listening or who we're talking to aren't always going to perceive that the same lens as you. Now, what I mean by lens is they're not always going to hear and interpret what you're saying in the exact same way as you. So this is why it's always important to understand. Okay, so prime example, Me a few years ago, one of my best friends, we would send like video snaps. Anyway, so I got really passionate helping a friend. Well, I thought I was helping. This is what you can do. And like, don't give up on yourself. Like, I can get really passionate in the mindset space. Okay. And that can be like a flaw in me because I get so passionate and I really am about empowering people and all those sort of things. I'm like, yes, you can do it. And I got so passionate with a friend that I didn't realize the depths of where she was at. So, how I was coming across being so passionate and uplifting, she actually, because where she was at in her life, she took it like I was not bullying her, but just really degrading her, being like, you need to do this and blah, blah. She felt really like, well, you have no idea how I'm fucking feeling right now. You know what I mean? The message did not come across how I was intending. Okay. And so she was listening to me and she was really in a dark place. I'm glad that she felt comfortable enough to say to me, hey, you have no idea what I'm going through right now. And your message has not helped me. I really let her down, like really just said it all out to me. And I thank her for that because this is a couple of years back now. But I learnt in in that moment where I was like, holy shit, okay, so not everyone will perceive how you mean. And we've just kind of got to be okay with that. And I was like, holy shit, okay. Like, I did not mean to come across like that. That is not how I was saying it or what I intended at all. And I actually started crying. I made my friend feel this way, right? I triggered her so much in that moment. And I thought I was helping. So I learned then the first thing I need to do is feel all the emotion that I feel right now because I'm not going to video her back crying. Okay, because that was never her intention. She's trying to tell me where she's at in her life. And so I then cried and I got it all out and I then Snapchatted her back and I was like, I am so sorry. And I just did not realize how I was coming across. It was a really big learning curve for me where I literally heard her out because the reason why I didn't want to video her back crying is because sometimes crying can be very manipulative. And we don't mean it for to be, of course not. But I just knew in that moment that it would be because I'm gonna Snapchat her back crying and be like, I'm so sorry. And she's then gonna feel shit because it's making her gotta hold me in my emotion. When I know people aren't gonna agree with this, and I totally am okay with that because it's really hard to grasp. But I didn't want to Snapchat her back crying because that's not fair on her. She's expressing to me that she's really not in the place to hear what I have to say and it didn't land how it was meant to. And you've got to be okay with that. You've got to meet people where they're at. And so I cried and I felt the emotion because everything is all about feeling, right? In every given moment, every situation, we've got to feel our emotions because if we don't, they then go into our body and we can actually harbor resentment onto people. It is a thing, it does happen. Okay. So we don't want to have resentment because resentment is really hard to shift. Out of everyone, she really thought I would never make her feel that way, right? It was solely working my Instagram for just mindset at this point. It was like a shock to her to be like, well, you're meant to be a mindset person, yet you made me feel like this, you know? And so I can understand that because I'm meeting her where she's at. She's really hurt. And then I videoed her back. We ended up being all okay. But in like the whole point of this little scenario is that in that moment, it's easier to defend. So as much as I was like, holy shit, I just felt so it was like heartbreak. I actually felt so broken to be like, holy shit, I created that for my friend. Like I triggered her so much. Like obviously her feelings are valid, right? She had the feeling, okay? Because I know I talk about this and it's kind of going to be a little bit of a contradiction where I say that you take ownership for your feelings because I have an ownership episode, right? Where you need to take accountability, like it's not the other person's job. Now, that happens in other circumstances. So with this scenario, I did make her feel like shit because I was very passionate and I was trying to uplift her. And I didn't actually understand where she was at in her life, right? Or where she was at in her season. Okay. And she was in just a really dark season. And so you talk to people in a different way when they're in different seasons of their life, right? And so her opening up my Snapchat and I'm just like, yeah, blah, and I'm being real passionate. She's then like, holy shit, I don't need to hear this right now. You have no idea where I'm at. I'm so blessed for this situation because she was able to still communicate to me and really tell me how she felt. So then I could understand where she was at. And that gave us to be able to mend our friendship, because she could have easily been like, you know what, fuck you, Talia, we're fucking done. And I'm sure she probably wanted to do that. When I received it, I was like, oh my God, ouch. I did not ever want to make someone feel like that, especially when I talk about mindset and I'm all about empowering. I cried and I got it out because I didn't want her to see me cry, because that's not fair. For her to witness me crying in that moment, it can make another person feel bad, when that she's very valid in how she's feeling. Now, I'm not saying that when you cry and communicate, you're manipulating, you're not, but there is certain situations where you've got to read and be like, hey, like, okay, shit, I need to get myself together because I've upset her. And we want to defend as well. So like in that moment, I also wanted to defend myself and be like, well, hey, I only meant to be like this, and like, you know me, I'm not this person. And that's very normal for us to want to do that. But sometimes when we get to the defense too much, we're not honoring the other person's feelings and we're not validating them. So because we're in our feels, we've got to like feel that, get it together, and have that moment of pause and then talk to the other person. It doesn't always happen in that given moment, but learning to understand and reading a room, which I do have an episode on learning to read a room, reading a situation, on how this comes across, how can I best help them understand what I mean. And we can get on the defense too much of trying to prove that, when really we need to just take a breather, feel the emotion and go, oh my gosh, and take that accountability and ownership and be like, I'm actually really sorry. I never meant for that to come across that way. I take full ownership on this. And I didn't realize where you were at in your life. And, and just really meeting someone where they're at can do so much than actually always trying to be right and always trying to be on the defense and like, well, you know me, I'm not that person. If you think I was trying to do that, well, then it's on you. That is, you're pointing the finger and you're not taking accountability. And you need to take accountability in certain situations, because yes, I do say you didn't make the other person feel an emotion. Of course not, but you can contribute to that. And it really depends on the situation and depends where people are at. And you really got to take accountability and ownership on like, shit, yeah, I'm in the wrong for that. And I had no idea. And that's what I did. I was like, oh my gosh, even though survival instinct is to defend and be like, oh, I'm not that person. And you know me. I didn't. I was like, no, we're not going to lead with that. We're going to lead with, holy shit, I'm meeting you where you're at. I'm actually so sorry. And I didn't mean for anything like this, but I take full responsibility of how that all came across. When we let down the guard and we can own what has happened and see it from that point of view and understand where the other person is at, and it's not about pointing fingers or anything, it's literally just being like, holy shit, I did not mean for you to feel that way, essentially, right? And I know that's such a contradiction to what I say, but there's always a moment for things. There's always a situation that sometimes we can overstep in that. And it's about understanding and reading it that, shit, I've overstepped. I take full accountability for that. And if I didn't do that, we wouldn't be friends today. I can definitely assure you. And I'm so thankful for that moment, because that was a very growing time where I was starting to rebrand myself at this time. And that was my first real, wow, okay. I felt like I was always trying to be an empowerment, and it wasn't like I was forcing my opinion onto people, but I was always like, if someone came to me with a problem. So that is something why, like, this is why I feel so, I'm right where I'm meant to be, because what comes effortless to me is helping people. I'm the person that everyone comes to me for a problem. And I'm okay with that. That's happened all through my life. I've always been the person to help other people solve the problem, whatever it is, right? So I always feel like coaching has been my forte my whole life. It's something I do so effortlessly, but it fills me up so much. And so I help people in the background on my platform, and I'm working in the works at the moment to really be able to like help a lot more people. So that is something I do effortlessly, where people are like, I can always come to you. And even like when I'm on the train or something, I must be very approachable, because I get a lot of random people talk to me, and especially about their problems. And I just sit and listen. Sometimes people just want to talk to someone and you don't even have to say anything. And it's just about listening and hearing what they have to say, because that is validating for someone enough. So that's like a little story I thought would really help. Okay. Because not that I'm trying to force my opinion, I was never trying to do that. But because I was always so uplifting and be like, oh, okay, when people came to me for a problem, I would try and fix it and be like, okay, well, how about we need to start to work on this, blah, blah, blah. And like I could really break it down for people. And that is so effortless for me. And sometimes people don't need that. I learned in that moment, and going from that moment to now to this present day, I've really learned not everyone needs for me to fix their problem or to give them a different perspective. Sometimes people just need me to listen. And that is validation enough. So now I've really practiced that, and I've really gone, okay, do you need my opinion? Do you need advice on this? Is this something you need advice on? Or did you just need to vent this to me? And I let them make the choice, because sometimes people just need to vent. So when we can go quickly onto, I said this in one of my episodes, I can't remember which one, but sometimes when we're talking to people, or our friends come to us and we're like, they're needing to vent about something, and you're like, okay, I hear you. And for us as women, we can do that so well, more than men. Like, no offense to men here. It's just like we have the capacity to do that. And a woman will always be able to satiate another woman, because a man will never be able to satiate a woman unless if the woman's helped him to understand too. Okay? Because a man, they're not emotional. They're more likely to fix and be like my partner does it to me. He's like, oh, babe, well, how about you do this? And I'm like, I don't need you to fix the fucking problem. I just need you to hear me, you know? And so I've really helped him to understand, like, sometimes I literally just need you to be like, I hear you, babe. And that's all it needs. I don't need you to fix anything. I just need you to be an ear sometimes, right? And men don't know that, because all they want to do is make women happy. And so they try and fix our problems, which is amazing. But sometimes we don't always need our problems to be fixed. And that goes with us as well. Like when we're hearing our girlfriends, or when people come to us, or whatever it is, they don't always need their problem to be fixed, or like to have it be a different way. Sometimes people just need to feel validated by just listening. And we don't always need to say, right? So much can be said without any words. It's the same as like when you're in a situation where, say, someone's being quite mean to you, right? And that's just who they are. They're like a bit of a toxic person or whatever, or they just choose to be an asshole because it makes them feel good, which then tells us that's how insecure someone is. So it's interesting when you can understand that. So when someone's having a dig at you, or they've got to always be better than you, or whatever it is, that actually shows how insecure they really are. They have no personal power at all. They don't see themselves very worthy at all, because they've always got to be better. They're always searching for that validation outside of themselves. When someone is very secure, they're like, well, this is me. I don't need you to validate me on like, wow, you're an amazing person. I don't need that. I know that I'm that, right? Not me in general, just in like a generalized thing, guys. Like, I'm not saying this is me. I just mean that someone who's in their power, they're like, I know I'm a worthy, amazing, capable person, or intelligent person, strong person, whatever, right? We're all so different. That will shine through no matter what. And coming from that place is, I know it can seem like ego, but it actually is very empowering to be like, I don't need people to see me as I am fully, because no one is always going to. You've got to be okay with people misunderstanding you. I get misunderstood a lot. And as much as, yes, I've been really upset about that, but that's something that over time I've really worked on, that I'm like, you know what? You'll get to see that I am a good person, or you will get to see my true traits. They will shine through eventually. I don't get to put a time limit on that, because everyone is so different. Everyone's been hurt so differently. So you've just got to trust that over time, people are going to see you for who you are. Because I haven't said this for a while, actually. I used to say it so much, that no mask can be worn forever. I can tell you that. A mask can only be worn for a certain period of time. It gets old really quickly generally. So for me, with the person I had kids with, his mask wore off like pretty quickly. Like, it literally took a space of 6 months. with my 6-year relationship, I wouldn't say he really wore a mask. I sort of just viewed life so differently. I wanted different. So it wasn't so much he wore a mask, it was just more like it was just different. But everything that he was saying about my dad, it really just hurt me because I'm like, what the fuck? Because you never said any of this when he was alive. So that was what hit me, amongst other things as well. But that was like the straw for me. I don't really talk about this often, but so after everything that happened with the person I had kids with, a few people blew into my life. One person blew into my life again from my past, and then I had new people like I was getting to know, sort of thing. Anyway, all didn't work out. It was all good. But this one person that blew into my life again, I was like, oh my gosh, like how funny, like after all this time. And I began to understand no mask can be worn forever, because I could see that really quickly. And that happened in a space of like a couple of months, like a few months. So this is what I mean. Everyone has different tolerances. Truth always comes out. You don't get to know how much time though, which sucks, but you can't look at it like, oh my God, I wouldn't have wasted my time, because no situation that happens in your life, that is a waste of time. I don't believe that. I believe it all happens for a reason. You learn different lessons, and you've learned so much from those different experiences that if you didn't have them, you wouldn't know what you know now, right? And that is part of growth. Growth is a choice, because you're choosing to see from that experience, I gained this and it allowed me to see this, instead of just being like, oh, well, fuck them. I can't believe this happened to me. Can you believe it? Like, there is a very different energy. Growth is always a choice. Growth is understanding your lessons. And then people who aren't like, and I say evolution is inevitable, because as human beings, we're always evolving. It's always like things are always changing if we like it or not. You either keep up with the change or you get left behind, basically, right? So as an evolution and as a species, we're always evolving, okay? So that's why it's inevitable. But growth is optional, because you can only grow from an experience when you see the lessons, because you choose to do better. You choose to own the things that you're like, holy shit, I didn't know that then, but now I know that now, right? This is all part of growth, but growth is always a choice, and not everyone chooses that. And so going back to when being quiet and that, it's just we're understanding that not everything needs to be said. So say if like you're having a disagreement with your partner, for instance, and you're trying, like you're saying your piece, like, no, but this is what I mean. And your partner's not getting it, right? Because they have a different perception and they're hearing what you're saying differently. Sometimes when we're trying to resolve an argument and the other person's just not hearing or understanding what you're trying to say, sometimes it feels like you're going around in circles. I'm sure you guys have experienced it. This is where it comes down to, are you trying to be right in this situation, or do you want to fix it? There's two options generally in this circumstance. So when you feel like you're in a situation with a friend or with your partner and you're trying to resolve something and you're like, but you're not getting it though. Do you understand what type of person I am? And you start to get really frustrated because you're like, you're not understanding. Are you listening? And that's us getting on the defense of being like, are you listening to me? Like, what the fuck? Right? And they're being like, I hear you, but this is what I mean. And they're getting on their defense. Okay. Now, when we both get on the defense, we then can invalidate other people, because we're not choosing to hear what the other person is trying to say. So when we're in like a disagreement, argument, a situation, whatever, it's always important to hear the other person. So the art of listening in this whole communication dynamic is the fact that it's not just listening, because people can listen, but they're not actually hearing you, right? There's a very big difference. So you want to be hearing someone. All right. Because when you just listen, you're listening to them, but you're not actually trying to understand where they're coming from. You're just listening to words coming out their mouth, and you're choosing to put a feeling because it's triggering you. You've got a feeling now to what they've said. You're then going to get on the defense and be like, no, but that's on you. And this is not me, blah, blah, blah. And that's how we can point fingers and not take accountability. So what I'm saying here is that when you get in a situation where it's like you're not understanding, what did you exactly get from my conversation? Like, what did you hear for what I was trying to say to you? That can really be such a big question to ask. Sometimes when you're literally you both are going around in circles and you're like, okay, we'll just agree to disagree then. That can be still very left unturned, right? So I will be honest, that doesn't satiate me. And so I make it really hard for people in my life because saying, like, well, this is just a situation where we agree to disagree, then I can't leave it because my head will still keep going. And again, yes, trauma response for overthinking. I feel like that can still be such a cutoff point because I still think that people can have resentment from that. And why is because it kind of dismisses everyone and that's it. And no more talk. And so both parties feel very invalidated to be like, well, I didn't get my fucking point across and neither did they. And also, we've just spent time trying to work it out and it feels like it was for nothing. And then we can fall into, we wasted our time. And then we can fall into, well, they don't fucking get me. And especially for a woman, we can then create a story from that. And I know men are like, well, just don't create a fucking story. Well, it's easier said than done because over time, it won't bug us in that moment. Over time, it's still niggling at us in the back of our head. So then it becomes a subconscious thought, which we don't get to have control over. And then our partner or our friend will do something like again, and it will add on to that, right? I see it and I have had that in my past where I've started to create sort of like a bit of resentment and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to resent this person, but I'm starting to gain a bit of this. So I need to actually talk to them about it. Sometimes saying agree to disagree isn't always the best and just asking yourself, am I trying to be right in this situation or am I trying to fix this? And sometimes when you're in a situation where neither of you are going to agree on that, and that's okay. And it's like, okay, well, you have your truth and I have my truth. But what did you interpret from what I was trying to say? Sometimes that asking the other person that is like your way of like, because you're wanting to say, okay, I'm fucking losing you guys. So basically, you've gone around in circles, you're getting nowhere, okay? And it's coming up to the point where it's going to be a agree to disagree situation. So before that happens, you just ask yourself, am I trying to fix this or am I trying to be right? And generally, the time when we're going around in circles, it does come from we're trying to be right, okay? And when that's okay, don't shame yourself. We're fucking human. It's very normal. I do it. I'm like, fuck, I'm trying to be right in this situation. Catch myself. I'm no perfect person, okay? But this is just trying to shed awareness. I'm trying to be right here. Okay, so we want to lean into fixing, okay? And obviously, this doesn't come into masculine and feminine energies, by the way. So let's just, if anyone goes, oh, but that means fixing means masculine. No, it does not coincide into this situation. Okay, because sometimes women don't want to fix shit because it's like, no, but he's the fixer and like that's a masculine energy. Yeah, we don't want to get so lost in this whole masculine feminine energies, by the way. Okay, it does not imply when it comes to this circumstance. So you want to lean into fixing. I don't want to be having this resentment to my partner. I don't want my partner to feel invalidated, all the things, right? So let's lean into fixing. So then you ask your partner, if you're a guy or a girl, it doesn't really matter here, whoever's listening. You ask your partner, so what exactly did you interpret from what I was trying to say to you now? And then they'll literally say to you, because I've said that to my partner, and it's been a completely different thing to what I was trying to get across. Sometimes I literally think to myself, how did that even come across like that? But that's people's perception. And then maybe you can then explain it in a better term for them to understand. Because by saying that question, they're then telling you, this is what I interpreted. And you could literally be like, this is wild. But then you can go, okay, well, if your mind goes here, well, this is what I mean. Okay. Now, if that still doesn't work, it's like, okay, well, that's not what I mean at all. But I can hear your side and I have my side. I think we just have to be okay with that. I don't think that we're going to be able to resolve this here. Like, I completely hear your point. I see what you're trying to say to me. But I think this is where we just sort of drop it because sometimes talking about something so much will never get you anywhere and it will exhaust it to the point that you've talked so much about it that what's going to actually make it better is actioning on that. Constantly talk about it and like, yep, this is my side, this is your side, that everyone understands and hears everyone's point of view, that the only thing that is left is leaving it and acting on it to resolve that. Sometimes we get so into the talking that it's just too much. It's going nowhere. And especially if it's against a man, they're going to think, oh my God, she's just pulling drama out of nowhere. They can get really impatient because they don't like talking. They're not into talking. They don't vibe with that. Like, men need to decompress and shit. So sometimes we can go around in circles, and it's just about kind of going, okay, I said my piece, you say your piece, I hear you out, all those things, and let's just move forward. And that sometimes is honestly all you can do. But it's about just saying, like, I hear you and I get what you're trying to say to me. And I know that you get what I'm trying to say. But I think now let's just leave it and we'll act on it. And that is just a little bit more like, I know it's like, but Talia, that seems like such a watered down version of like, it is what it is, your thing, your thing. But that comes from such direct of ego of being like, whatever, whereas this is more like, okay, you're valid in what you're saying. I'm valid in what I'm saying. We just need to now act on this. That is so much more of a soothing outcome than actually being like, whatever, it is what it is, because that's so dismissive. Sometimes in circumstances, I'm like, all right, let's just tone it back a bit, because a lot of people just want to be right and have their ego run the show. That is part of being a human as well. Just to reiterate on this episode is that you just need to ask yourself the question, am I trying to be right here or am I trying to fix? Also asking the other person, what exactly are you interpreting from what I'm trying to say to you? People just want you to listen to them, because a lot of the time people don't feel validated in their own life, that sometimes they just want to be heard. And they don't need someone to give them advice or solve their problem. They just need to be heard, because they don't have a chance to be heard. Sometimes for me, that is real, because my mum doesn't like to listen to me. I'll talk to her about something and she'll respond by talking about a completely different topic. And so I don't feel very heard or validated. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then I don't really feel heard with the girls because they're children, right? And sometimes I just need someone to hear me. Like, do I even matter? It's definitely something that you've got to work on yourself, but also having people around you to help that as well, right? Because I've also been in a situation where I was trying so hard to talk to my family and they were talking in circles because they actually weren't emotionally intelligent enough to understand what I was trying to say, that they demanded what their point of view was the right way. And they'll go, no, you're wrong. You're doing this. And when people want to put you down like that a lot of the time and be like, you're wrong, no, it's this way, it's because they're actually not emotionally intelligent enough to have a conversation with you. And that sounds very harsh, but the more that we can actually understand that, the better. Because I wasn't trying to be right. I was like, no, I understand what you're trying to say, but also, how about from this point of view though? And they were like, no, 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 not everyone has a growth mindset. And not everyone's going to be as emotionally intelligent as you to understand stuff. And I think it's about being okay with that. And it's not you being like, oh, I'm better than you. It's nothing like that at all. It's just being like, this isn't the people I need to have this conversation with. So it also comes into reading a room where you're observing the conversation, and sometimes not saying much is enough, because you're like, I don't really need to have this conversation because my opinion people aren't going to understand. And that's part about reading a room and who you're actually in a conversation with as well, right? So it just comes into so many things where it's just about hearing what other people are saying, and then allowing people to speak, because sometimes when we speak over or we get so passionate and we cut people off, that we're invalidating people around us to even have an opinion or to even speak, because not everyone's going to want to, speak over and challenge you. Like it generally puts people in more of like oh, well, she's talking, so I guess I just don't need to. We don't mean to do that, of course. I've definitely done that a lot in the past, and that's something I've really learned heaps, where I used to cut people off only because I would get so passionate about what we're talking about, or I get so excited that they would then not feel validated, because it's like, what, she fucking cut me off. Like, I didn't even get to speak out what I needed to say. Right. And I come from a family like that. My mum would always cut me off, and everyone in my family does it. So that's obviously where I learned that, and having moments in my life to go, holy shit, okay, I've learned to just lean back more and just listen and go, yeah, okay, and only speak when I feel like I need to, or when I have an opinion or whatever. I've just learnt the art of listening and being like, okay, because sometimes it's okay to just sit there and listen. You don't always have to talk all the time. And the more mindful you can get over that and be okay, and just like listening and everything. And it's not just like listening and being like, I'm too scared to say my opinion. It's not like that at all. It's more just being like, what are we exactly talking about here? Okay. And then understanding it from like a different point of view and being like, okay, like, do I need to say my piece here? Or like waiting for the other person to finish and just like having that patience as much as you're excited and that you really want to like froth over the conversation. When you wait for people to finish, then it's validating them that they have a voice in the conversation too. Anyway, I'll leave it here because I was very much the person that I would cut people off and it was so bad. Like, and I just really had to learn this over time. And it's just the more conscious you are to it, if you are one of those people, the better. Sometimes I don't say much and people go, you okay? And I'm like, yeah. I just don't feel like the room needs my energy. Sometimes if I'm in a big, like at a party or something, and I'm like, okay, cool, and you're meeting new people, I'll be a lot more quieter because I don't really know the people. So I'm just listening, but I'm having a good time. But because I'm not like, yeah, hey, oh my God, because I'm that person, doesn't mean I'm not having a good time. I'm just listening to other people and I just kind of speak when I feel like I can or if people are going to understand what I have to say. So yeah, I think the more that we can learn, like pause and just really read the situation for what it is, I think it really helps us to have like better conversation and not cutting people off and not making people feel very invalidated, right? Anyway, I'll leave it there. I hope you guys are having a beautiful day as well. And I really would love it if you guys could share or rate the show. I'm actually going to start to link my email, which is my business email. So then people can email me certain questions if you guys have, and I can do like Q&A episodes. So you guys can email me like, I have this situation. What would you do in this situation? Whatever. And I think that would be really good as well to help you guys out a bit more. And then I have a bit more interaction with my audience than you guys just listening to me. Anyway, so I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. I'll definitely start setting that up as well. I hope this really helps. Share it with someone who needs to hear it because that really helps the show to get to more people and have more reach. I really, really appreciate that so much. And then I'm able to have a little bit more guests on here as well. I do have other people that I have yet to actually schedule to have more guests on my show. I just haven't had a chance to, so I need to tee up times and everything like that. So that's really exciting for more people to come on the show as well. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys all for listening, and I really just hope that this helps you.